Sometimes all it takes is one person and one social media video to set off an absolute firestorm. Today, we are diving deep into how a single provocative clip of a man mocking American taxpayers blew up into a massive national debate about immigration, welfare, and even American identity itself. Let's get right into it. So that's the big question, right? How does that even happen? We're going to unpack the whole thing, the original clip, the instant furious reaction it got, and the really deep, complex theories that bubbled up to the surface. It's all about understanding how this one little video created such a perfect storm. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the video that lit the match. Then, we'll trace that explosion of online backlash. After that, we're going to zoom out and look at these bigger claims of fraud, the political theories that came out of this. And finally, we'll try to understand how it all turned into this huge cultural flashpoint. All right, first up, let's talk about the stone that got dropped in the pond. The viral video that started this entire thing, posted by a Somali man living here in the US. And the tone, wow, it is just openly mocking. I mean, he's not just talking about his own situation, he's talking directly to American workers. And that direct, taunting language, that is exactly what lit the fuse for so much of the initial outrage. And then he just doubles down on it. He literally calls himself a freeloader and then throws out a specific number, claiming he gets $400 or $500 a month on his EBT card. These specifics, they were like throwing gasoline on the fire that was about to start. Okay, so you can probably guess what happened next, right? The first ripple, the online backlash. And believe me, it was immediate, it was personal, and it was intense. And you can just feel how personal this response is. For this commenter, this isn't some abstract political thing. No, it feels like a direct personal insult. They feel like their own hard work is being spit on by someone who is openly laughing at them for it. And it didn't just stop at personal anger. Oh no, the backlash escalated, and fast, to calls for real-world consequences. This comment right here shows how the conversation just immediately pivoted to immigration enforcement and deportation. This really captures the whole dynamic, doesn't it? On one side, you have this blatant mockery and claims of entitlement, and on the other, this immediate explosion of anger, personal offense, and demands for official enforcement. It was this perfect, explosive call and response. Now, this is where the ripple starts to get a lot wider. The conversation quickly shifted from this one guy and his video to much, much bigger allegations of systemic fraud and even organized crime. You see, the focus didn't stay on that one individual for very long. People online almost immediately started connecting his video to these pre-existing stories and allegations about large-scale welfare fraud. And they specifically pointed to cases within the Somali community in Ohio. And the numbers that were being thrown around were just staggering. One source claimed that nearly $17 million in SNAP benefits had been stolen just from Ohio households through card skimming in a little over 6 months. This number became Exhibit A in the argument that the viral video wasn't just some one-off incident, but a tiny symptom of a much, much larger problem. And to back this up, commentators pointed to specific cases. Sources were bringing up a nonprofit that was allegedly misusing over $2 million in rental assistance funds and a market that was supposedly part of a $10 million SNAP fraud conspiracy that lasted for years. So you might be wondering, how in the world did they get from one guy's TikTok to these massive fraud allegations and these big picture theories? Well, this is where the wave hits the shore, and some sources try to make sense of it all. One source actually put a name to the attitude in the video. They called it post-Americanism. The idea behind this is, if you believe a country is fundamentally unjust and oppressive, well, then taking from its systems isn't seen as freeloading. It's reframed as a righteous act, like pillaging an unjust system. And then there was this other, even bigger theory that got brought into the mix, the idea of demographic correction cycles. This is a historical model, and it basically suggests that when economic stress and cultural friction hit a boiling point, nations often react with mass deportation efforts to try and, in their view, restore some kind of order. And that connects right back to those calls for ICE we saw earlier. And here's how one source basically laid it all out, connecting the dots. They outlined this cycle. The public mockery in the video fuels public outrage. That outrage taps into anxieties that are already there. This then creates a political opportunity for certain leaders, who then ramp up enforcement, like the ICE raids that were also being discussed right around this same time. All right, let's pull back for the final piece of this puzzle and see how this one single incident really became a battleground for so many different arguments. It's time to just observe the water and see all the different currents that were at play here. What's so fascinating is that almost nobody saw this video the same way. For some people, this was purely an economic issue, taxpayers versus welfare. For others, it was political or cultural, or even, as one commentator argued, a religious conflict between completely different value systems. The same video meant something totally different to everyone watching it. And to kind of throw a wrench into some common assumptions, one source pointed to this really interesting polling data. According to their poll, 40% of Latinos actually want immigration decreased. That's a higher percentage than the general U.S. population. And this was used to argue that the frustration with the current system is way more widespread than people often think. So when you look at the whole thing, it really breaks down like this. It all started with one tiny little video clip, but that quickly spiraled out to touch on huge concerns about fraud, immigration policy, deep political theory, and, at the very core of it all, fundamental questions about our cultural identity. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? The video itself almost stopped mattering. It just became this vessel. All the fears and anxieties that Americans already had about the economy, about who we are, about the future, it all got poured into this one viral moment, which made the reaction a million times bigger than the event itself. And this final quote from one of the sources just sums up the irony of the whole situation perfectly. The argument is that while this man thought he was cleverly mocking the system, what he really did was create the single best justification, the most powerful campaign ad for the very enforcement policies he seemed to be laughing at. Which leaves us with this one last crucial question to chew on. The man in the video, he thought he was telling one story, but millions and millions of people heard something completely different. It really forces us to ask, in this age of social media, when a single moment can be seen by literally everyone, who actually gets to decide what the story is really about? It's something to think about.